Welcome to DSS vlog. Today we've got a special vlog where I'm here with Ross Bennett. We're just going to run through the Locomotive Skills that he's been working on over the last number of weeks. Ross is producing a whole series of blogs. Two of them are out at the moment, I believe. And we're just doing an accompanying vlog, then a series of vlogs to go with each blog, just so it's a little bit more interactive, explaining some of the concepts that he's talking about in the blogs. And there should be some good stuff when we get up and start working on the whiteboard as well, to show us some of the practices and how to organize them. So just as a brief reminder for anybody who's watching this for the first time and haven't met you, Ross, can you give a quick reminder just of your role with DSS and your current work role and who you've worked with before?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Kieran. Yeah, so currently just come on board with DSS as the head of performance. So looking more around the sports science side, trying to ramp that a little bit more to accompany obviously the great work that's gone on there within the Gaelic stuff, and also maybe taking it into football or soccer as it is back in Kieran's homeland. Previously then worked at Chelsea, so following graduating degree, worked at Chelsea's academy for just over 5 years. Excuse me, working with different academy teams from under 9s all the way up to under 18, under 23s at times. Went to the Aspire Academy in Qatar, building for the World Cup, working with their national team, kind of year group 2000, under 15s as it was then, delivering sports science and S&C support. Then came back to England and worked at QPR, where I've been at now for 6 years. Currently the head of academy performance there, so overseeing kind of sports science, nutrition, psych, performance analysis, etc, etc. And then alongside that, I was as the head of performance at London Gaelic football team, the senior inter-county team, under Kieran there for 4 seasons. Last season kind of was the last season we was involved. So yeah, bit of a background towards me, and I'm delighted to be producing this content for the fantastic resource that's online already.
Okay. Okay, so let's have a quick look through. So I've got your first introductory blog as regards the Locomotive Skills, and you've just given an introduction about what are some of the components that you look at and how to develop them, and also how you've categorized different qualities within the continuum that we work with. Do you want to have a quick chat about that?
Yeah, of course. And so we're going to be obviously discussing and sitting down, as Kieran said, we'll be up on the board, quite interactive, just to show people kind of sessions and qualities. But I think initially it kind of grates on me that people do like a 10, 15, 20 minute warm up and there's no real purpose. I think that's how this stuff sort of derived, and when me and you was working together, Kiers, and still are in the academy. So the 3 main areas we look at within the physical type work that we're doing, and we don't call them warm-ups, we call them locomotive development. So we're looking to develop skills, as you are on the technical side as well. 3 main ones are acceleration, deceleration, and we couple them together, and we'll come on to why we kind of put them first in the program in a minute. Change of direction and linking that into agility, and again we'll talk about kind of the differences between the two and why they're termed different things, and then top speed running and max speed running. So they're the 3 main things we look at, and we obviously look to develop them at different times throughout the season and progress on obviously through the continuum we'll talk about in a minute.
So most people will probably work on change of direction and agility and max speed through very prescribed drills. So you'll see a set of cones and you run from one cone to the other cone as fast as you can, or around or through poles, for instance, to work on change of direction. So what's your approach as regards that then?
Yeah, for sure. So we work on the continuum. So I always say that people, have such radical views that, oh, well, it must look like the game, or it must be cone, it must be set up like a drill. For me, everything has a place. So we start off with what we call close skill. So where you think the drills are more cone based, and you've got a start point and an end point, and that's really there to really work on someone's technique. So if you look at someone's like hand passing, their kick pass in Gaelic, or their basic different passing range in football and soccer, like you work on the technical element, especially when they're young. We can't forget that. We have to coach our players at times what is the ideal technique, and of course there's going to be differences in technique and way people do it's going to be slightly different, but we have to give them some pointers, right? So the close skill ones for any of those kind of modalities, will be looking at certain cone drills where we're saying from A to B, and here's the technical elements within it, and we'll coach. But then obviously we have to shift the kind of development and the learning closer to the game and making things more what we call reactive in the next phase. So whether they're reacting off a partner or they're reacting off the coach. And the whole idea then is, can the player perform the ideal technical model for that player under a bit more load and a bit more thought process, like they would in a game when lots of things are going on. And then the end one then is making it chaos. So can they then perform that skill in a very chaotic environment where they've got to think 360 or they've got lots of variables to think about? Can they then still perform quite a good, efficient technical model, which is good for in a performance outcome and safe from an injury point of view as well? Kind of the way that we would like it, but the way that kind of they move best. So that's kind of from closed to reactive to chaos. They're kind of the way we progress them through.
So a lot of people you see on Twitter, Facebook, elsewhere will always say that everything must be match related or must be sport specific in terms of, on the one hand, the coaching. So they say, well, the game is the teacher and you put players into the game and just let them learn that way. But also in terms of locomotive skills and physical qualities. And people will say, well, if it doesn't look like a match, if it's not chaotic with lots of variables, with lots of decision making, then how will that transfer across? But you've quite a good way of bringing along that continuum, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I actually spoke at a conference a couple of weeks ago at St John's School, and a couple of really good speakers who was very much on that end paradigm of everything has to look like the game. You know, we can't make something that doesn't simulate the game or start to teach, but we have to let them problem solve. But my thing is that we still have to give them pointers and we still have to give them some sort of coaching input and give them the tools before they then go into that problem solving environment. So I think it's a blend of both. The game is definitely a teacher, but also we have to isolate whatever we want to work on specifically, whether it's physical, technical, tactical, and we have to what we call and what we don't take it back to the lab. So we have to develop that certain skill set at times and isolate it in the best way we feel possible.
What do you think about the differences between the novice athlete, let's call it child, the youth, and then the adult, and looking at, if you want to think in terms of the adult as the senior intercounty Gaelic footballer or the Premier League soccer player, is there a difference between what you would do at really young child, youth and adult?
Typically, so now we're talking a little bit about long-term kind of athlete development, if you like. Typically from like real early phases, so 9s to 11s to 12s, if you've got a player in the system from that early, there'll be the times where you look at real exploration and problem solving. So you might not coach them as much, you might let them try and figure things out. When they get to then like 13, 14 and it kind of coincides with their growth period, then we start to teach them a little bit more about basic technical principles and challenge them in a chaos environment as well. And from then onwards, I think the blend stays similar. I think the formula stays the same, that you still give them snippets depending on where the player is and the athlete is, snippets of coaching and isolated close skill, but also putting them into situations where they're completely overloaded from the brain and they have to figure things out as well. So I think from kind of 13s, 14s, that growth period upwards, things stay fairly similar. If they're going through a big growth spurt, then you might want to isolate the movement a bit more to teach them coordination and kind of get their body back in track, on track. So, but
So you will look to hit the different components of that in terms of closed, open, reactive, but you may have greater focus on one of those at different age groups.
Potentially, like the growth period is probably the only time you might focus a little bit more on closed skill. I think once they go through growth, then it's about longer term development and developing them over time. So then it's then it's a bit more of an individual analysis then. What does that player need or that group of player need? Are they technically okay but they're not able to make decisions very well? Let's shift them towards decision making. Are their decision making quite good but actually their physiological profiling of them performing the skill isn't very good? So we might need to work on that a little bit more.
And when you say about growth period, for people who don't work in professional sport or experience of that, what do you mean by that?
So that's when they're going through their main growth spurt, kids. So typically around 13 to 14 in males and a little bit earlier in females, although there is huge variance in it. But sometimes when kids go through their growth spurt at that age, they go through like a real awkwardness stage. So you can visibly see that as a coach, and you can say, well, actually their limbs have got a lot taller and they need time to catch up, basically, and they need to get stronger and relearn the movement patterns. So that's where I think from a technical perspective, a lot of kind of technical drills, taking them back to the basics. Also from a physical perspective, teach them to move a little bit better before we put them into that kind of chaotic environment. So you shift the weight slightly towards the close skill side.
Okay. Last question on it then, and I think a lot of people will be very interested in this one who are working with teams, of how do you periodize that then throughout your season?